You're listening to the Pigskin Cafe, a podcast covering the wild world of college football. On tap for today are hot takes, controversy, and analysis on your favorite team. Here's your host, Hampton Sipper, in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. My name is Hampton Sipper, and I got Chase and Graham Haney joining me today. And to be honest, guys, I don't think we thought we would be having somewhat of an emergency pod on Saturday, January 13th. The national championship game took place this past Monday, but that seems like a whole nother year ago. A lot has happened this week. As many of you know, Nick Saban has retired and a new coach has been hired, and we're going to break it all down today. And before we do any of that, and I kind of pass along the conversation to Chase for him to guide us through, quick programming reminders. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at the Pigskin Cafe if you haven't already. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, and hit that notification bell. And be sure to follow us on social media. We appreciate all the support we've gotten throughout the year. Some of our past two pods previewing and reviewing the college football playoff semifinal, we got a lot of great feedback on that, and we appreciate it very, very much. And we're looking forward to another fantastic conversation here today. So, Chase, I'll hand it over to you, man.
Yeah, fellas. I guess the best way for us to maybe talk about this, and as you're listening to this, what's happened has felt like, a bomb going off, and then you're trying to process your emotions, trying to process how you feel about this, and then obviously someone's been hired, which all really exciting. But what we want to do today is instead of just going with the current and maybe just talking about things as they sit right now, we'd love to just kind of go step by step of what's really been a week of finding out that Nick Saban's retiring, and then the process of finding out who is going to be this next head coach. So we want to just kind of go slow and go with the timeline to almost remind you that this is what this week has felt like, rather than it kind of felt like at the same time, a 12-hour window, but at the same time, a year window of this happening. But before we get started, I do want to say, you got to give credit where credit's due. Your boy did say, hey, that if Saban won this one, I think he goes out on a win. But I'm really genuinely shocked that he went out on a loss. But I did want to say I was very close to getting this one right. So just a great place.
Unlike her Will Riker take.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Just a great place to start. But fellas, I want you to rewind. Let's even go back to Kevin Steele retiring. That comes out right when the playoff starts. And for me,
Yeah.
I felt like that was smoke. I thought that was a little bit of, hey, how do we get the media to still talk about Alabama? But did that hit you guys' radar a little weird, or was it just, hey, it made sense, it was his time to retire? Just give me kind of just a quick, your quick thoughts on that. Hampton, I'll start with you. Sorry, let me make sure I pass it off.
Yeah, no, you're good. I'll be quick. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think Kevin Steele would be a long-term solution at defensive coordinator at Alabama. I knew he had only about one more year to get fully vested into the state retirement, and he did his duty this past year. 66 years old. Wasn't surprised at all, and definitely didn't think it was leading to anything that was going to happen on Wednesday.
Yeah. And Graham, just kind of your quick reaction. Did you smell anything around that, or did it just seem pretty normal?
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was normal. I feel like there's so oftentimes there's just turnover in the off season. Okay,
Yeah.
things did not work out. Things got to change. I thought the defense did well this year, especially the way they made adjustments, which is a pleasant surprise. But overall, I think that it was just one of those. Hey, you got to keep moving forward. The clock's got to keep turning. Go on to the next person for whatever reason that is. I didn't dig in too much of why he retired or why he chose to make the decision when he did. I just kind of thought it was, it's Alabama. It's just things just like that happen, especially for coordinator wise every year. So I thought it was just normal business. I didn't really think it was anything fishy or suspect. I just thought it was, well, okay, I guess we'll have to find a new defense coordinator now, who's the next man up.
Yeah, I think that's how it hit me too. Just worth pointing out that Kevin Steele is younger than Nick Saban. And so that he was retiring, and I think everyone was like, "Oh yeah, this guy's old."
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of put a little earmark right there. But let's move on to Wednesday. I want you guys to really paint a picture for our audience of maybe what you were doing, how you found out, whether you thought it was rumors or confirmed reporting. Whenever you get the notification that Nick Saban is retiring. So, Graham, I'll start with you. Graham is now a school teacher, and what he's impressively done is somehow figured out how to have feels like the whole month of December getting January off. So I tip my cap to how you've slowly gotten back into the rhythm of things. But how did you find out? When did you find out? Just paint us a little bit of a picture there.
Yeah, so even more impressive than being a school teacher or actually working at school, I got the news at the DMV. I moved to a new state, going to get a new license, was kind of in a rush. The driver's license office closed at 4. The
And
rest
buddy,
of
do they
the
close at 4?
rest of the office closes at 5, so I get there about 3:45, just hoping and praying that there's enough time for me to get a new license, and I did. So there was success on that end.
Come on.
But I'd gone to take my picture. I was done. Got my printed copy. My wife was getting hers, and luckily at that point I had time to look on my phone, and it was Saban's going to retire. The rumors that Saban's going to retire, and then all of a sudden the ESPN notification comes through, and it was just it just really took the breath out of me, in a sense of like something that had felt so normal for so long is like now not a part of the equation anymore. I wasn't, in a sense, like heartbroken or devastated. It was more of just what are we going to do without Saban? Like, as long as I've been alive, there's only been a few coaches at Alabama. And as long as I can remember Alabama football and have memories of Alabama football, it's with Nick Saban at the helm. There's a lot of you listening. There's a lot of Alabama fans that know many, many years before Nick Saban was the main man in Tuscaloosa. But for me, I was extremely spoiled. I think all three of us were extremely spoiled with the years that we got to grow up around Alabama football. We've only known success. We've only known being at the pinnacle of college football, and all of that is credit to Nick Saban. Alabama has a really storied history of being successful and being one of the elite college football programs, but under the leadership of Nick Saban, it was taken to a level that I don't think anybody could have expected, nor will it be able to be replicated in a sense. So, all that to say, I'll never forget the day that Nick Saban retired, because that day will be printed on a legal documentation piece of mine with my name on it from the great state of Alabama. So I will never forget that day for many reasons, but it'll always be on a piece of hardware that I carry with me. So I guess if anything, that's a piece of what Nick Saban is doing. Like as long as I live, Nick Saban will be a part of my life, in a sense of the happiness, the memories, the success. Like I'll take all of those like with me. And in a sense, just to repeat what I've said, we've just been spoiled. We really have been. We've not known Alabama football truly when it was not at the level that it is now. So for that, I'm extremely grateful, extremely appreciative, and just hoping that the future is brighter as the past has been. So I'll pass it back to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really is one of those days that you seriously won't forget. It's not like you attempted or tried to remember. It's just something you'll remember where you were when
Mm-hmm.
Nick Saban retired. So, Hampton, let me just ask you to paint a picture of what it looked like for you to find out, and how are you coping?
Well, I'm going to be like a bridesmaid speech and say, I promise I wasn't going to cry. But
7 things you need to know before you get me. I mean, yeah. Great bit right there.
great
Continue.
bit. Thank you. Um, so I was at work and I'm in an actual like Dolphins group chat, and this guy who's not an Alabama fan puts in there Nick Saban retiring, and I'm like, I let out a no. Then I go look at Twitter and I see the Chris Lowe tweet, and like I go, oh no, and everybody that I work with thinks something's like really wrong,
Devastating.
and I'm like, yeah, Nick Saban's retiring. That is something really wrong. And they were like, well, I thought it might have been your parents. I'm like, if it was something with my parents, there would have been a lot more agony in my voice, and I would be running out of here if something was wrong with them. But I genuinely could not believe it. And Chase, I know you mentioned, and I think we all can understand and recognize the fact that we knew this day was coming. We knew it was getting closer to the end. The end was drawing nigh, but we didn't think it would be on a random Wednesday in January. But I remember at lunch, there were some murmurs, like even on Twitter, about something happening this afternoon regarding him retiring, him stepping away. And then there was the notification that there was a team meeting at 4 o'clock, which is a customary thing that they've done every year where he goes and it's like the first address for the new team. It's kind of the kickoff to 2024. So no one thought this was coming. I think there's been some revisionist history from some thinking, oh, this has been in the works since November, December. I don't really think that's the case. I think more than anything this year, there were more signs that this was closer than I thought he had 3 to 5 more years left, but there have been some hints with him buying the home in Jupiter, Florida, with kind of how he's approached this year in a lot of ways. I mean, he's definitely mellowed out as he's gotten older, but there was just a different appreciation and gratitude that he showed this year. Like when at the end of the Tennessee game, he goes and runs to the student section and thanks them for being a great crowd for that game. He's always done that kind of when he's walking back the locker room. He's never, that I can remember, run all the way to the student section, then run all the way back. And when I got the news, the first thing I thought of, and I had talked about this with someone 3 or 4 weeks prior, like I've been with Nick Saban has been a part of my life for 2/3 of it. I mean, I remember in third grade going to school through December, through January, because that coaching search after Mike Shula got fired was 40 days. I remember Rich Rod being hired, quotation marks hired, until his wife said no. I remember Steve Spurrier being mentioned. I remember all these names and like talking about it with my PE coach. And then I remember the day we got Saban. And when he got hired, no one thought that we would have and witness the run that we have had over the past 17 years. I mean, the man won 6 championships in a 12-year span every other year. It's something that will never, ever be replicated again, especially as it's going to become even increasingly harder to win a championship with a 12-team playoff and everything. And looking back, like some of my best memories, even with you guys like the conversations we've had with my family are sitting around watching Alabama football. And I know that like some of my greatest moments of happiness, 2nd and 26, Rocky Block, the TJ Yeldon screen, all of that was because of him. All of that was because of what he has built in Tuscaloosa, and not only what he's done as a football coach, but what he's done in the community of Tuscaloosa, rebuilding after the tornado, being such a huge revenue generator that, I mean, Tuscaloosa has flourished and the University of Alabama even, with doubling enrollment, bringing kids in from out of state. That's all because of Nick Saban and the impact that he has had on that community. And even more than that, the leadership principles that I've learned from him, the process, being focused on what it takes to get the desired outcome, not squarely focusing on the goal, but what it takes to get it, the importance of valuing others' times, being efficient, being a person of excellence in everything that they do, getting the little things right. Like there's being where your feet are. All of these things come from Nick Saban. I mean, obviously, my parents and our parents have instilled great principles in us, but there's stuff that Saban has talked about and done that has really impacted me and how I look at life in a lot of ways, in a lot of avenues. And it's just, Graham, I know you said you weren't heartbroken. I was heartbroken. I mean, I like Wednesday, I didn't just break down and sob, but I was just like, it's just not going to be the same. It's kind of like that Andy Bernard quote from The Office, like, you wish you knew you were in the good old days before they left. And I can say this, I knew through this whole run that we were in the good old days. And while I'm excited about the future, I know that it's not going to come close to what we've experienced over the past 17 years. And I'm forever indebted to the man. I mean, I truly love him and appreciate him and Terry for everything that they've done for Alabama and for the city of Tuscaloosa. And it was a sad day, and it's one day that I will never forget. And it's going to be weird on A-Day, but especially that first game when I don't see that little 5'9" man strolling the sidelines. It's going to be weird, and I'm forever grateful for Nick Saban and everything that he's done. So, Chase, I kind of pass it to you. Where were you? Kind of give your feelings before we kind of move on into more so the coaching search aspect of this conversation.
Mm-hmm. So I was actually on the staff retreat. So we were out of town, and I was actually playing disc golf. And I've probably played, I can count on one hand how many times I've played. And this is probably the first time I've actually had fun, which maybe was, just the Lord and His kindness allowing me to have fun. And it was funny. There was a guy that I was playing with that's on staff with us, and shows me like a text message from the radio station here in Dallas. And anyways, I kind of phrased it like that because of course you can be a fan of the radio station. There's a lot of people here. They're really funny guys. I actually listen to them a good amount when I'm in my car. And anyways, though, it didn't feel like as legitimate of a source. Like it felt like those people could report something that wasn't factual and that would be okay. And so I was thinking, it is kind of that time of year when you hear these rumors each time. It seems like each year around this time, you start to hear whispers of Saban retiring, and you're just kind of used to just taking it on the chest, move about your day, and it doesn't happen. And shortly thereafter, of course, Chris Lowe, who has become just the foundation of what it looks like just for Alabama to report things that are factual. It seems like Nick Saban and him had a really great relationship of, we trust you with this information, and with that, we trust that you're not going to release it until we want you to. Like, you'll be our guy as long as you'll give us time to tell the players first. And so that was when I knew, is seeing you guys in our group chat post the Chris Lowe tweet. And at first I was thinking, dang, man, as we've said, no one was surprised, but we weren't expecting this. That we knew that it had to happen at some time, but at the same time didn't know that it was going to happen now. And I do think that if you looked at even some of the transfer window, I'm really grateful the way that he did leave. I think that what we can learn, and especially people in our generation, is what does it look like to leave well? A lot of us enjoy getting the new job, getting the things that are exciting. But for Saban, it was all about a legacy. And also, what does it look like to just leave well? And I think that that's telling the right people at the right time, wanting them to know, and wanting them to also know the right information, and being a man of integrity of saying, hey, if there was anything more, we would tell you. And you trust me enough to know that when I say that, that I mean that this is exactly why I'm choosing to retire now, and it's not something that's emotional. We've been processing this for a long time, but we've also wanted to set you guys up for success and whoever's next for success. And so I'll simply end by saying this: that I was excited for him. I think that Saban has probably not felt a normal life. And he's experienced things that I'll never get to experience. But at the same time, I've experienced things probably he's never experienced of just what does it look like to not have a job that's that demanding. That, I hope that he's not someone that looks up and wishes he would have been a better father or a better husband. I think that he's done a good job, especially towards the end, of bringing his family together. And you've seen him going on the vacation to Italy, and they're buying this house. And I do think that he wants to be that. But I'll simply end by this. I was going to bed that night on the staff retreat, and I've said this a couple times that I think just had a moment to finally reflect. And I was thinking, man, this guy really has given my family, he's given me, he's given my family and my friends just a lot of happiness, a lot of happy moments. And I mean, you guys think about just, you would turn on the TV on Saturdays and knowing that Alabama was going to win. And that's just, we'll never feel that again, of what it feels like to have a coach that every single game, no matter whether we were playing ULM or whether we're playing, Georgia, it felt like at times it didn't matter. Like, we were going to win. And so I was just sitting there just kind of reflecting on that. And I was thinking, man, if I just relaxed my face muscles right now, I think I would cry. Like, I felt like my granddad died. And so that was,
Yeah.
it was just sweet, kind of like, man, like a life well lived for him, a career that's been very successful, and a legacy that's amazing to leave behind. And so anyways, I think that that's just the beauty of what it looks like to leave well, to end well. And yeah, man, I wish that I could just, honestly, I think everybody wishes they could just tell him thank you. So man, it's been a great ride, and I'm really grateful for him. And but I think I'm excited for this next chapter of life, of the glimpses you started to see of his happiness, of kind of letting his hair down and allowing himself to celebrate. I think that we're going to see that come out for probably the next 10 years, of just a Saban that he's present, but man, he's just getting to enjoy all the things that we've got to enjoy because of his success. So, Ham, did you want to say one more thing before we moved on here?
Very quick thing. You talk about leaving a legacy, and we talk about, as Christians all the time, they ran their race well and they finished well. He finished well. He didn't win a national championship, but he went out on arguably his best coaching job.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I can not thank him enough. I just want to add to that because that came to mind and thought it was a great point by you.
Yeah, and I think that's worth pointing out. And I want to, he did sit down with Reese Davis, and I did watch the whole thing. I'll be honest and say that he still got his coach speak. I mean, good grief, that was about a 30-minute interview, and by the end of it, I thought I was about to fall asleep. Like, I love the guy, but I mean, it was just, it's the same thing you've heard at every press conference, which he has become a professional at, of just these interviews of talking a lot but not saying much. And I don't mean that in the negative way. Just, here are my answers, and I'm just going to continue to go through those. And I think at moments he was extremely honest, and then other times I felt like we were like he was on the podium, And so,
I agree.
What I want to kind of maybe just put a string together is you did kind of mention that. We talked about this a little bit of it whenever Kevin Steele retired. That retirement, and then Saban saying, "Hey, I had to put a lot more effort into the defense this year. That I did leave a legacy. This was one of my greatest coaching gigs, but it took a lot out of me. And I'm not as young as I used to be. The defense demanded more of my presence. I want to just kind of, let's maybe spend just, really quickly, 30 seconds on just kind of that. It was a great coaching legacy, but just the exhaustion. Hampton, Graham, okay, I'm going to let Hampton just take this one. And I'll start with you in the next question. But Hampton, just how do you reconcile that of just his exhaustion, and while at the same time this being his best coaching legacy, like best coaching job that he's had?
Well, when there was a lot in that interview that he said that I didn't quite fully buy into. Just like when a week ago he told Pat McAfee, "I'm not retiring,"
Yeah.
And then there were some things in that interview that he said that I didn't fully buy into, but with the defensive comment about I had to be more involved with the defense this year, that was quite eye-opening because Kevin Steele was supposed to be a guy that he brought in so he wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So that makes you wonder, what was Kevin Steele doing this year?
And
What
then,
was and I know
yeah, T-Rob's kind of calling plays. I don't mean to jump ahead of you, but just let's line those up real quick.
Yeah, and so that part of his comments were very eye-opening, very revealing, I think, in a lot of ways. But I will say this, and then I'll kick it back to you.
Mhm.
And I think we can all agree. It's hard to say it in the moment because we love the guy so much, but it's true. After 2020, we saw a little bit of a slip.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a little bit of slip in the things that had made Alabama. Lack of discipline, penalties, boneheaded mistakes at the worst moments. All that kind of stuff started trickling in more and more and more, especially the past 3 years. And so I do think with his age, it was getting harder and harder for him to do the job that he had grown accustomed to doing, which you can't fault the man at all for. I just think after 2020, that was like his apex.
Mm-hmm.
And as good of a job as he did this year, I think there was a little bit of decline, which is why I'm even more thankful for him that he is self-aware enough to know this is the right time for me to go because I am not going to be a detriment to this program. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that I've left it in the best place that it can be where someone else can come in, take the reins, and keep this train rolling. And for that, I respect him all the more.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and that's exactly what I wanted to hit at. Of there's a great legacy, but this is an exhausting job that he has done so well for so long, and way to be self-aware to be willing to pass it on while it's still in an amazing place in an appealing job. So, Graham, I want to let's kind of just quickly go through the timeline here because we are capturing a few things of Saban retiring, the timeline of who's going to be next, and then we want to then get to who we've hired. So we keep not mentioning DeBoer's name like it's some kind of secret. At the end, you're going to get this icing on the cake of who we've actually hired. But Graham, so let's go. All right, Saban's obviously retired. We've all mourned. We've grieved. We've wished him our farewells. But at the same time, remind me what our AD's first name is. Byrne.
Greg.
Correct.
Greg. Greg Burns got a job to do. And I think on two hands, there's this, you never knew when it was going to happen, but you knew that it was. And at the same time, I think they're constantly casting out a net of just interest and relationship building. And so by no means was this, they were starting at square one. I think that he wouldn't be doing his job well if that was the case. So Greg Burns starts this coaching search, which I think can accurately be described as what we described it as in our group me, which is just lock and key. We don't know anything. And I'm not going to throw any stones, but there's somebody who didn't know anything that did a fine job of trying to get some views one night. But nobody knew anything.
That was a disgrace. I agree with you. That was a complete disgrace.
About me, and I was like, I think I've got some very. I could give you the full argument by what I mean. He did not know a dang thing. But credit to him for just credit to him because he knew he didn't. I mean, he had everybody feeling like at any moment he could just let something slip out, and I mean that guy was bluffing the whole night. That guy should go play
baby.
Playing Texas Hold'em with the viewers. So Graham, first name that comes out, I'll let you just kind of take it. Give me your thoughts on who was the first name that came out. Were you excited about that? Did you just kind of give me your thoughts? So kind of start us at the beginning of the timeline of this coaching search.
Yeah, so was it 15, 20 minutes after the official news came out, then the candidates and rumors started to circulate of these are the people that Alabama might pursue, or these are people that might be interested, or keep an eye on these names. And it really was three names to start off with, and I'll just start off with the first one, and I'll let y'all two, because I think we're all in agreement who the three were. But the first one was Dan Lanning, was who was going to be the guy. And It was an intriguing thought. He's done a very good job at Oregon. He has, changed Oregon's culture a little bit to make them more physical, yet their offense has still been explosive. I think he's young. He's worked with Saban before. Has worked with Kirby Smart and been a successful defensive coordinator. He's done a great job recruiting on the West Coast. However, I think the question mark I had around Dan Lanning was simply the fact of we've seen so many coaches be successful at Oregon with it seems like it's one of those programs where you don't really have to do much. You tweak a little bit here and tweak a little bit there and you'll be successful. My concern was that there's been so many coaches that have been successful at Oregon and that have gone on to other places and not had that same level of success. And even I could stretch to say that have been failures at other places. We think Willie Taggart, a big question mark around Mario Cristobal right now. Chip Kelly leaving from Oregon to go to the NFL has some immediate success and then kind of really gets stumped by the NFL. Has had a few stops and then is now at UCLA doing a good job, but is not the level that he was at Oregon circa 2010 ish. So, but I was intrigued by Dan Lanning. I thought that a young guy, a guy that could really take the reins and has seen what Saban does, can build on that, but also adds the element of truly a new generation of Alabama football. Very exciting, but ultimately, since we know he's not the guy, he's not the guy. So intriguing that Dan Lanning was one of the first names mentioned. Was still kind of unsure of whether he would commit to Alabama, considering that he turned down probably half of the moon for the job at A&M. So I think that he was very picky, and as of all reports, he's happy in Eugene and is excited to take Oregon into the Big Ten and the future of football. The last thing I'll say about Dan Lanning, we move on. I also think that he's probably aware enough to know maybe right now is not the best time to move, because in 3 years, the college football landscape is going to be completely different than what it is today. And yes, it always evolves, but the way that it's changing next year with the 12-team playoff truly changes the dynamic of football in ways that we haven't seen, honestly, probably ever. Because as long as we've been alive, it has been a 14 playoff, the BCS. Before that, it was just the AP, who's going to vote on it. So truly, there's only been at a maximum 4 teams that it could ever compete for the title, and now it expands into 12. So I think that he was probably self-aware enough to know, like, hey, like maybe right now is not the best time to move. Let's do what we do well right now, and then in 2 years, if I just don't like college football anymore, we can move on to something else.
No, I think that's good. Hampton, is there anything you'd really add to that? I mean, there's plenty that you could add, but is there anything that's worthy to be added to just kind of Graham's take on that?
Real quick,
please.
Just as a whole, to encompass this whole coaching search, the blind leading the blind. This is what this was. People didn't know what they were talking about and leaking all this stuff. I had people telling me Dan Lanning is at Chuck's Fish right now, and you know who you are, and I love you dearly, and that he was the guy. And I was excited about the possibility, Graham, like you, good recruiter, good coach, think he's a program builder, youth, everything you really like, but ultimately didn't end up happy in Eugene. And I'll have another note on Dan Lanning here when we get to who Alabama actually hired, but that's all I have to add.
Really. The only thing that I'll add, this sounds so strange, but I think that there's honestly some legitimacy to this. I think that his youthfulness, while that is a pro, I think is one of the things that probably disqualified him, honestly, of just Alabama's not going
He's still learning how to coach in big games.
Yeah, to just this very ripe guy. And then I'll also say that I feel like Alabama wanted someone who was just clean cut. And I'm not saying that Dan Lanning's not, because he's got a beard, but I just think that they wanted somebody that had probably some salt and pepper, some wisdom, clean shave. Like that's who I think is I kind of built this ideal coach for them to move on to. I was just thinking they probably wanted somebody who was older that had kind of had experience and then at the same time showed it. So,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, and also a guy that when has pockets still chooses to clip pins in his shirt.
maybe,
That was
maybe.
most important. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's keep moving. All right. So Dan Lanning seems like, and guys, I think that what was the like what sold everybody was that fake flight tracker. And I'm not lying, guys. I was thinking like, hey, I like this good recruiter. You know, not probably who I
we were hyped.
I mean, this guy was pretty much they were looking for property. I mean, you know, his wife was there, but anyways, it was funny that was the thing that I think sold everybody, and it was as fake as it could be. You know, just as fake as it could be.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, it's not Dan Lanning. We figured that out pretty quickly. It feels like it's not Dan Lanning. Therefore, ... Hampton, who was it going to be at that moment? Whenever it wasn't going to be Dan Lanning, remind us what those moments felt like.
After the Dan Lanning, didn't it feel like it was going to be Sark for a little bit? There was
I feel like Sark was kind of. I think the Ewers thing when they put out Ewers, that was me. I took that as Ewers is not staying for another year if Sark's not going to be there. But at the same time, it's clear that Jimmy Sexton was getting all his guys paid here. But you're right. He did not say, Sark had not come out and say, you know, Dan Lanning put out the video that's like, hey, I'm still in Oregon. Great day to be a Duck. And then it did seem like it took Sark a second, but he got there. But I don't know if Sark had enough, not legitimacy, but I think Sark is kind of like, that's who everybody wanted it to be next. But I don't know if there was really much there other than everybody wanted it to be than him. So, I mean, maybe add a few more sentences, but I think that you know who the next name is that's probably worthy of discussion and reaction.
Would that be Mike Norvell?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I agree with you on the Sark thing. I don't think there was ever a real thing. I think a call was put in, hey, are you interested? And he said, no, I'm happy where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And then he got a raise and extension out of it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Mike Norvell was the next name. What he's done at Florida State has been really incredible. I mean, that program was in the dumps. They were in a really bad way. And by the fourth year, they were in playoff contention. They had a good year last year. Ultimately, if we had hired Mike Norvell, I would have talked myself into this is a good hire. He's a good coach. He could build a program, all that kind of stuff. And I get that a lot of his team was made up of transfers because that's kind of how he had to build his team to win. It did not sit right with me that 20 to 30 players sit out of your bowl game. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not a direct reflection of their culture. I get that when a lot of the guys were transfers, but that was my main sticking point with him. So even if we had hired him, I would have talked myself into it like, good hire. I think we can win with this guy. I would not have been over the moon about it, though. That's kind of my 2 cents on Mike Norvell.
Yeah, Graham, let's toss it to you. What were you kind of thinking? I don't think you have to say anything about Sark. I think everybody would have been excited by that, but it really felt like it's not Lanning. All right, well, if it can't be Sark, those felt like the two options. Then we start moving on to Norvell, Mike Loxley, Tommy Rees. You're starting to think, hold on one second. I don't even know how I rank some of these guys, but it feels like Norvell started to get pushed towards the top. So what were you kind of thinking through those moments of the process?
Yeah, I think that Mike Norvell did a really good job at Memphis. You got hired at a Florida State team that truly, like Hampton said, needed rebuilding, had been at his peak years before then, really bottomed out and was unsuccessful. I think the two reasons that he wouldn't have been the guy, and I think that I agree with what Hampton said, that I would have been okay with it, but it wouldn't have been my favorite person. I think the first thing is that at Florida State, it did take him several years to be successful. I mean, it did take him a while to get things going really in the right direction, which in Alabama,
he was on the hot seat.
Yeah, Alabama right now, it is not as of today, as of January 13th at almost 11 o'clock when we're recording this, it's not a team that needs rebuilding. You know, it's a team that has talent, has seniority, has elite playmakers. it doesn't need the rebuild, which is what Mike Norvell did at Florida State. I think the second thing is, and Chase, me and you talked about this, was that it seems like whenever Norvell would miss, he would miss really big. And I say that to say it was always on signing day. The 5-star they had committed, who's their best talent, their best player, never seemed to sign with Florida State. I think that was also concerning in the sense of when he lost, he didn't lose the small guys that were the backup tight end, the blocking tight end that needed for depth, or the wide receiver that had really good talent but just needed to do some learning. It was the guy that had all the pieces and was already almost ready to cash that check in from Florida State for that NIL deal, goes somewhere else. And that was very concerning to me. I think that's the most concerning, especially for an Alabama program that is known for having elite recruiting classes under Nick Saban. So I think those are the two things that it would kind of be were my reservations behind Mike Norvell. And obviously a change of scenery could change things completely for a lot of these guys. Just the situation is going to be different when you change, everything that's around it. So I'll kind of turn just a little bit from Mike Norvell and then kind of pick on the other names. I think that the guy that a lot of fans were looking forward to that wasn't Mike Locksley was Lane Kiffin. I think was a name that a lot of fans were excited for, and was truly a coach that was in a position to upgrade his position. I think when you look at Dan Lanning, Oregon, elite program, can win it all. Texas, elite program, can win it all. Florida State, elite program, can win it all. Ole Miss, good program, probably can't win it all. It really takes everybody else having bad years in order for Ole Miss to succeed. And I'm not saying that to discredit Lane Kiffin. I'm just saying that the circumstances are what they are. That Ole Miss has a good program, has good football players, but is not an elite program. And yes, he does come with some question marks of has he grown up? Does he make good choices? So and so. But Hampton, I want you to kind of hit on what you think about Lane Kiffin and all those other names that were since Hampton, like you said, the blind leading the blind. Oh, they haven't named somebody in 30 minutes. We got to choose a different name. Maybe something will come out.
Well, with Lane Kiffin, I would have been okay with it. I'd have actually been excited about it because we know he's an offensive genius as far as scheming, as far as putting players in the right position. He's built offenses everywhere he's gone. I think he's grown up too. I think he has matured a lot since he was at Alabama. 3 or 4 years ago, I would have told you, heck no to Lane Kiffin. But I think in the past 2 or 3 years, he's really come around. Knows how to use the portal. And I think even with NIL, they've been doling it out. But also, I think he's handled it pretty well from a locker room chemistry aspect. Because he told Judkins to get out. I mean, Quinshon Judkins, as talented as he was NIL hungry. And I think Kiffin was finally done dealing with it, which I respect as a coach that you put your locker room over one individual player who's arguably the best player on your offense. So I think he would have been good, but I don't think Alabama ever considered him. I don't think he was ever at the top of the list. Because if he would have been offered, he'd have come. I can guarantee you that. Now, the other names mentioned before we get to the name that was hired, Mike Locksley, God love him. I love him to death. No shot.
But he did.
Shot.
He did just beat the Stew at Auburn, which is definitely one of the boxes we want to check.
He did. He met that prereq, but everything else, no. I love Mike, but no shot.
First name basis over here.
Yeah. Hey, he and I are buddies.
Big Mike.
Hey, we went to Chuck's Fish in Tuscaloosa one time.
Yeah. Talk about Big Mike one time.
Big Mike? Yeah. But then you had the Tommy Rees rumor and I think he might have gotten an interview out of courtesy. I don't think he was ever considered. And I love Tommy Rees. I think he's got a bright future. It's not the time for him. It's not the time at all for him. So what was funny, though, was Thursday night, not going to name names, but a particular outlet said Mike Norvell was going to be interviewed tomorrow on Friday. Kalen DeBoer was in the mix, and Tommy Reese was going to get interviewed on Saturday. Well, I hate to say it, but if Tommy Reese was getting interviewed on Saturday, it didn't happen because a head coach was named on Friday. So that shows you some of the other names that were trying to be thrown up against the wall and see what stuck, and none of them did except one. And with that, Chase, I think we can really break down the new head coach of the University of Alabama.
Yeah. I think that you guys covered, just quickly before we move on, I think you guys covered Norvell, that it really did feel like, hey, I can make myself be okay with this. But if anything, let me summarize. It did feel like, for me, it felt like the program was going to take a dip before it maybe went back to being just successful. It felt like there was going to be a dip. And Graham, I think you touched on the biggest hesitation of, it doesn't seem like he can close the deal with big guys, the number one guys. But then simply, I question, and this isn't fair towards him and his overall leadership, but that you didn't lead your guys well to play in that game that did matter, where the line is easily, let's go prove to everybody that they got this wrong. And
Yep.
Brock Bowers isn't playing, like one of their best players isn't playing. Like, let's go steal this. So I think we were all grateful at that moment. That was the turning point with the fans of, we were excited for Lanning, we were excited for Sark, and it wasn't either one of those, and it was all like, dude, please do not let Norvell fall into our lap. That just doesn't feel like what was supposed to happen. We all started to think, is there a third name, like somebody in the mix? And DeBoer was in the mix, but is there a name that's in the mix that we're not even thinking about? And so we'll kind of skip that part of the process, because we're really just, no one knows anything. We're naming names that aren't even close to the program. And so it begins to come out really clearly that DeBoer's not only in the mix, but it does seem like he's the front runner. And as some people have said, that he was really one of the only guys truly considered, if not the only, which, only a certain amount of people know how that happens. But he's hired. He's in Tuscaloosa last night, press conference here in about 2 hours. So, Graham, I want you to start off, because Hampton, I know you've. So, Graham, kind of give me your reaction to that. Don't steal all the statistics of what we're excited for, but just what gets you excited about this guy, and then truly, I want us to also just consider some of the. Hampton got some tragic news. We want to. Just some of the coaching that I think he brings with him, like just kind of philosophy, staff around him. So give us your reaction.
Yeah, I'll just start off. I think I'm really excited. I think he checks a lot of the boxes that we were looking for in a coach. And I think at the end of the day, wherever he's been, he's won and has been very successful wherever he's been. From the lowest level to the highest level, he's been very successful. I think this search, it sort of culminates with what happened a year ago. Alabama offense coordinator Bill O'Brien leaves to go to the NFL. We have a hole. Who's going to fill that spot? And ultimately, it was Tommy Reese from Notre Dame, but one of the big names and somebody that we were all excited for that came for an interview and was going to get a good pay increase before he got an extension was Brian Grubb, who was the offense coordinator at Washington. I feel like a year ago we were trying to take a piece of him, a piece of Kalen DeBoer's staff, a piece of him away and bring him to Alabama. I think that what I'm most excited about is, okay, last year we missed on a part of him. This year let's just go get the whole thing. Let's just go get the guy. Ultimately I think he's a winner. He's done a very good job. Has really transformed Washington, and especially Michael Penix, a guy that has always had a cannon for an arm, but has really been accurate and elite this year. It ended up being second place in the Heisman Trophy. I think the last thing that I'll say, and then I'll just pass it on because I don't want to get too in the details, a guy that just knows how to win games in a sense of this past year at Washington. What did they have, like 8 or 9 games that they won by like single digits or something like that? So they're as a Troy alumni and a Troy fan, you see a difference between a coach that knows how to lose and a coach that knows how to just finds a way to win. I think that Kalen DeBoer is one of those that just finds ways to win. And yes, it has been because he has good talent, but it's always, that if the game's on the line, Washington's probably going to have the edge. And I think there were several times this year that question marks of, they're not as good as they shouldn't be playing with. And what did they do? They silenced the doubters and they came to play and found ways to win, which is so important in today's day and age, because when you look at it, there's so many programs that have elite talent. The difference is who has good coaches, who has great coaches. I think that Kalen DeBoer is one of those that's going to be a great coach.
Yeah. Hampton, what's your reaction?
Well, I'll give my reaction in a minute, but man, Chip Lindsey just caught a stray for no reason, Graham. Good gracious alive.
He ain't catching strays. That was intended for him.
Oh man,
right now.
That was brutally honest. I thought,
sorry, I threw earlier.
Huh? What'd you say?
I said it's okay. I threw a brutally honest take earlier.
Yeah, you did. You did. The thing is, though, Graham, as harsh as that was, you're right. We do know the difference between being aggressive, trying to win a game, and then holding on for dear life and trying not to lose it. And Kalen DeBoer, when his name first got brought up, I'll admit I was not gung-ho about it. I was not all in and to the hire and what I think he could be. But as we got closer to it, I kind of did more digging. And what you said is right. He's a winner. He's 104-12 in his coaching career. And yes, I know that was at Sioux Falls or whatever it was called, but whatever, and I probably butchered that pronunciation. But
Sioux
go
Falls.
ahead. What?
Sioux Falls.
Sioux Falls. See? Terrible. Sioux Falls. The thing is, it doesn't matter what level you're at. That is impressive as all get out. Even at the high school level, if you go 104-12, you got something going on. You know what you're doing. And he's won at every place that he's gone. And what he's done at Washington has been nothing short of remarkable. He took over a 4-8 team in 2021. In 2022, they went 11-2, and then this year they were in the College Football Playoff National Championship. And he's done it with an offense that is innovative, that is fun, that is physical. That is something that doesn't get brought up enough. And we talked about it on the show, Graham, about how when Oregon and Washington played the first time, we didn't give Washington enough credit for how physical and tough they were.
Mm-hmm.
They were the more physical team than Oregon in both matchups. And I think that translates, and you combine that with the offensive scheme that they've got going on, and while Penix is a great talent, Roma Dunze is a great talent, Polk, McMillan, and other guys, overall, the Washington talent is not near the Alabama talent that is on the roster right now.
Or the Texas
There were
talent,
many
or the
games
Oregon
that he
talent.
won. Huh?
I said, or the Texas talent, or the Oregon talent.
I was getting there.
Okay,
I was getting
sorry.
there. He has won. No, perfect segue. He has won many games with his team being the second most talented team on the field. Oregon, for the past 3 years, and Texas, when they played him in the Alamo Bowl and when they played him in the College Football Playoff National Championship. That shows me that as an X's and O's guy, he's one of the best in the business. Now, the question is, can he recruit? Can he recruit the Southeast? I know we got some news this morning that Travaris Robinson from Alabama is leaving. He's going to Georgia. He's a big recruiter, and that is a blow. But we got to see how he rounds out his staff and how he builds it, because what I was looking for earlier in the show, I think right now he's bringing his OC, his receiver coach.
The OC is Grubb, right?
Ryan Grubb, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just making sure that I was on the same wavelength. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, you're good.
And like you said, that's like getting the guy that you wanted last year. Now you're getting, which I think is perfect.
Yeah, and
yes,
I want to Ryan Grubb's probably going to be in the mix for the Washington job, but if he's committed to come as of now, I definitely think that's good news.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've talked about it on the show. I think Tommy Rees did a great job this past year. I think Ryan Grubb, with what he does with formations, what he does with scheming guys open, is on another level. Now you got to have a quarterback that can do it and that can execute it. And that is not a shot. That's just being
Brutally
honest for
honest.
any. That's being brutally honest. But I think he is one of the top minds in the game, and I think there's a possibility the receiver coach comes over, the offensive line coach, who coached the Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line this past year, and then maybe a guy from the defensive staff or two. But I don't think he's bringing his whole staff, which, in my opinion, I think he needs to be given the freedom to build it the way he wants to build it. But if he's smart, you keep some of the guys from the defensive staff on board, like a guy like Robert Bala, who did an incredible job with inside linebackers, Freddie Roach to an extent, if you can't find an upgrade there, because both of them are good recruiters, good coaches, and they have ties to the South, which he needs to have in his coaching staff to help with the recruiting and help with the lay of the land. But ultimately, I think Alabama, considering the circumstances, could not have done better, because we mentioned Sark and we mentioned Lanning and how excited we would be for them. This guy's 5-0 against both of them the past 2 years with inferior talent. That shows me that when the talent pool gets even, watch out. He's not going to be Nick Saban. Alabama fans shouldn't expect that, but I definitely think he's going to keep this train rolling, and I think Alabama will be in contention every year with this guy at the helm. I truly believe that, and I'm excited for the future. It's bittersweet, and now it's all about roster retention and filling out that coaching staff.
Well, guys, I think you guys covered that well enough. I don't think I have much to add other than I think I'm excited. And I would say that, if you were wondering as an Alabama fan why we didn't have a plan in place, I think it's just simply that's just not how college football works. That you knew that was going to be one of the most appealing jobs in football. And why not just, when that moment happens, go get the best guy available who Saban trusts and is excited for, and saying, hey, I'm also willing to stay and help. So I'm almost grateful that they didn't have this plan in place, because at the same time it's like, hey, we're just going to keep it moving just as we always did in the offseason when we lost coaches and then brought in other coaches. So well, hey guys, again, thank you for listening to this podcast. We went almost an hour, and I think that we covered what's been a full week, and I'm just grateful for you guys and grateful that, grateful for Saban, but that we get to sit here and talk about, hey, what's the next chapter of college football going to look like? And as we said, the A-Day is going to be weird. It's going to be weird to see them go play Wisconsin. It's going to be really weird and also a big challenge to see them play Georgia at home. So I think that's a good way, though, for DeBoer to just sink in. And I think at the same time, what I'm excited for, and I'll end by saying this, is that if I could fault us for anything this season, it felt like we played too reactionary, which worked out for us. But I think that him coming in, like, he's going to be scheming up a plan of how he wants to slice and dice that Georgia defense, rather than let's run a couple of plays and see which one they defend the weakest. So I think he's going to have a plan. I'm excited for it. There's always, I'll just end at that. So, hey, grateful if you watch this going to work, or whether you're in the shower or you're just enjoying the long weekend. We wanted to come on here and really cover from top to bottom this Saban retiring to us getting a new head football coach, and Kalen, I think I called him Kevin a few times. Kevin
Steele.
Yeah, Kalen DeBoer. So, hey guys, the Pigskin Cafe is going to be closed for now. But until next time, chew on that. We'll see y'all soon.